Hi everyone, just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is going to be a method of solving quadratics that is always going to work. In terms of its, ease of use, it's not necessarily that it's hard, it does just require a lot of computation. And it's usually not necessarily the fastest. So this will be the method that will work no matter what, but it might not be, the most optimized option. All right. So, kind of always before you go about using this, check and see if there's something that would be a little bit easier, like maybe factoring, or is it something that's relatively straightforward to graph, stuff like that. All right. So, when we're looking at this, we do need to know what the quadratic formula is. So, the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus. So, don't forget the plus or minus. That gives you the two answers, right? The square root of b squared minus 4ac. Now, where does this come from? Well, you can actually derive it using completing the square, which I'll do in a different video. But the important thing before we start with this is you need to make sure that your quadratic equation is in standard form. So you need ax squared plus bx plus c. The other important thing to consider is notice how these are all pluses. So if you see any negatives, you are going to bring that in with like the b and the c or the a or whatever. Now, before we continue on and actually use this, I do just want to point out this right here, if you recall from standard form, that is just our x value of our vertex, right? So as you can almost kind of think of it, this part right here is what's really giving you the root, right? We know we're going to the right this much and to the left this much, all right? So just do kind of keep that in mind. In terms of kind of like what we talked about in the past with the averaging. All right, so just to show you kind of how it works, here's an example of what it looks like. So if you're using the quadratic formula, again, first and foremost, you need to make sure that you get everything over to one side and have it equal to 0, right? You need it in standard form. I usually like the side where a is positive. It doesn't necessarily matter. It'll all come out in the end because, if you switch the sign of one of them, the other ones will change or whatever, depending on which side they're set up on. So what I mean by that is I can move the x squared and the 7 over to this side, or I can move the farx onto the other side. All right. So the other important thing is when we're looking at this, you'll notice when we rewrite it, we have x squared minus 4x minus 7. Okay. So here we have the negative 4 and the negative 7. So do be careful with the negatives. They come with the b and the c. So then when you have to plug it in, you can simplify it using the, what you know about simplification. And you'll end up with something like this. Now, usually at this point, I'm perfectly okay with you leaving it in irrational form as opposed to like approximating it with a decimal. And if you were to do that, you would go all the way in terms of simplifying. So you'd have the square root of 44. Well, that's 4 times 11. So you could simplify it more. But let's actually go through the process of doing some of these so you can see what I mean a little bit more. So here I have, an exponential, a quadratic function or equation. I'm going to add the 4 to both sides because, again, I need it to be this way. So before I do anything, I do want to just make sure it's not directly factorable. So what do I have? Well, I would need factors of 51 that add up to negative 16. What are factors of 51? 17 and 3. So no, that's not going to add up to 16. So we will have to go about using a different method other than factoring. And graphing this one doesn't look inherently pleasant. So let's just go through the process of using the quadratic formula. So just to write it down to have it, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. All right, so plugging information in. Let's first identify a. B is negative 16. Oops, I forgot my x. And then c is 17. So let's plug this in. X is equal to negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 16 squared minus 4 times 16 times 17. All right. Oops, I made a mistake already. Wow, look at me go. Oh, I need A times C, and A, this is 3. Right? I just plugged in B. And then all over 2 times 3. All right? So what do I have? Let me just simplify this over here. So I have a negative 16 is just 16. Plus or minus the square root of, what is 16 squared? Just to double check myself, I'm like 99% positive it is 256, but I just made a mistake earlier, so I don't want to do it again. Yep, it is 256 minus 12 times 17, essentially, right? 4 times 3 times 17. It's minus 204 over 6. All right, well, what's this equal to? So that means I have 16 plus or minus the square root of 52 over 6. Well, what is 52 equal to? Well, 52 divided by 4 is 13, so I can break that up, right? This is going to be 16 plus or minus square root of 4, square root of 13 over 6, which is equal to 16 plus or minus 2 root 13 over 6. Oops, I've run out of room. Let me move my face. Here we go. All right, so at this point, what we're going to do is see how we have, like, this is 2 times 8, this is 2 times square root of 13, this is 2 times 3. Let's just simplify it a little bit more. Whoop. All right, so I have is equal to, after I simplify, 8 plus or minus root 13 over 3. And now I cannot simplify this anymore. So I am going to, this is just going to be my answer. So I have 8 plus or minus the square root of 13 divided by, let me put it up here. 8 plus or minus the square root of over 3. Submit, make sure I did all that right, and we are good, right? So do be careful with your simplification, right? Simplify as much as you can. So don't forget, because these have, all of the 2 in common, you should simplify, down to here. If you plug this into a calculator, right, what's this? What is this? This is essentially 2 different things, right? This is 8 plus root 13 over 3, or it would be 8 minus root 13 over 3, which you can plug into a calculator. You get 8 plus the second square root of 13 divided by 3, right? That would be 3.87. And if I did 8 minus the square root of 13 divided by 3, that's going to end up being 1.46, right? So when you plug these in, don't forget to simplify as much as possible. As you can see, these are, kind of close together. Let's do another one just to make sure we're on the same page and can do a new, one more. Oh, I just did a 3 and a 17. That's too similar. All right, let's do this one. All right, so again, I'm going to rewrite them so that everything is on the same side. Oh, I probably should have used the correct variable last time. I don't think it was X now that I'm thinking about that. Oh, well. So I have c squared plus 4c minus 13. So I do want to just quickly check. 13 only has a factor of 1 and 13, so nope. All right, so let's plug it in. So I have c, I should have used the correct variable last time. Negative 4, right, negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 4 squared is 16, minus 4 times 1 times negative 13, all over 2 times 1. Now, as I'm plugging this in, I do want to just point something important out. See how, imagine this was a positive 13 and you got, a negative, then the negative didn't cancel. you would have ended up with a negative number in the square root. Now, if you end up with a negative number in the square root, that will just mean that there's no real solutions. All right. I just want to keep that in mind. So the negative and the negative make a positive. 4 times 13, which I do know from last time, was 52 over 2. All right. So I'm going to run out of room again. -4 plus or minus the square root of, what is that? That would be 68 over 2. Now, 68 divided by, let's see, 4? 68 divided by 4 is 17. So that'd be -4 plus or minus square root of 4, square root of 17 over 2, which is equal to -4 plus or minus 2 root 17 over 2, which is equal to, and again, because all of these have a 2 in them, right? 2 times 2. So I have -2 plus or minus, that cancels out 17, and here's my answer. -2 plus or minus root 17. All right, and it's going to be just a lot more of that. So that's why I'm saying these are going to be things that always work, but it is not necessarily the most convenient. If you end up with a number where the square root ends up being a perfect square, right? You take the square root of 100 or whatever, that meant that was factorable. So anyway, do your best with these. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.